Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Today I have serial entrepreneur, beekeeper, triathlete, Ironman, property developer, Jon Tyson. How are you? Welcome to the Everything
Very
Property
well,
Podcast.
thanks very much, yeah.
Look, just to start off, one thing I'm interested to talk about, and when I first met you, we got talking, it takes a certain type of person to do the Ironman, to do the marathons that you've been doing, to do the triathlons that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And talking off air before we started this, you were mentioning that when you started the triathlon, you couldn't even swim.
Yeah, genuinely.
So I want to know what your thinking was around those challenges.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what happened. I went to a David Goggins event a couple of years ago and sat there in the audience. A couple of guys on to speak before him. And one guy said that the problem with personal development is it's considered kind of quite often mental masturbation. And so I kind of picked up that first speaker and was like, yeah, he's kind of right. Like I do read a lot of stuff and think I'm, going somewhere with the personal development. Next guy rocks up and his key takeaway for me was pick one thing. And his idea was that with personal development, you should just pick one thing and just do it, just implement that thing. And then rocks up this lady who I did not expect to be an Ironman, and she completed an Ironman. And she got up on stage, talked, and I was like, cool. So I need to basically implement one thing. And this lady was did an Ironman, and I just sat there in the audience and just booked it there and then. And I literally had a cold flush doing it. Yeah. Because I was like, well, what have I done? It was the $1,800 or whatever it is. It's not a small cost. Mm-hmm. And I just texted my mate who'd done one before and was like, I've just signed up to an Ironman. Can you help me?
What location?
Port Macquarie.
Port Macquarie one.
Yeah. Which then I found out was a real hard one. I was like, oh, great.
Talk me through mentality, and I know I've done marathons before, and I know that 30K wall mark that you hit, and then it becomes a mental game after that. Or they say that the race starts at 30K.
100%, yeah.
But Ironman, you've got a couple of K swim, you've got 180 on the bike or something.
Yeah.
So what is the mental test, or what did you sort of go through?
The first thing was just getting someone who'd been there and done it before, who could kind of first of all just give me. And this was a coach that I ended up hiring, who's a friend, who just said just follow this program, and if you're really serious, just stick to the program. Keep time management. I mean, you're talking 20 hours a week of training by the time you're getting close to the race time. Mm-hmm. And so massive commitment. The wife kind of was on board with it. I think that was also a big thing as well, because she was supportive.
Yeah, the training's the hardest part.
Yeah, without a doubt. Swimming, what ended up being 5 kilometers after work in a pool. I kind of look back, think I just didn't think about. I just get in and do it. It's kind of the whole night, kind of just do it. That kept on ringing in my head quite a lot. Just don't even think about the end. And then getting on to all the different stages, it was just that one step in front of the other.
So break it down into
the swim. I think was 3.6 Ks. I didn't think about the swim as 3.6. It was just get the first 100 meters. Yeah. And once you're in the water, obviously not long before you're out. And then the bike was just I literally broke that down into how many times I had a gel, which was I think one every hour or something. And
how many gels?
6. I think it was 6 hours. Yeah, 6 gels.
Wow,
so I just became
yeah.
You have a lot of time to kind of talk to yourself, and weird stuff happens when you're out there. But you ride along next to people who you kind of feel you know them, because they're also got into that same space. And then just kind of the marathon feels kind of quite an easy part by the end of it. As in just you come so far.
Yeah, true.
I probably wouldn't do it again though until I was 45. Bit more time. Just the time commitment's huge. So I went back to kind of marathons instead. I will definitely do one again, but just what real surprising thing I found lining up to jump in the water is that the average age was a lot higher than I expected. Maybe 55. Kind of the people around me weren't
But I feel that's because everyone's done the business thing, done the life thing, and
exactly.
then they've got more time, and you sort of just try to cram it in.
Yeah. So
you recommend that for?
I wouldn't recommend it doing it while I'm transitioning from a day job of 9 to 5 to full-time property. Yeah. I kind of look back and think that was pretty stressful for my wife and myself, and it was a lot happening, but I'm glad I did it. It was a good way of kind of parking the day job and being that's done. Now I've hammered. I actually kind of finished up with the day job from a sabbatical perspective, and I was focusing on the Ironman. And then after I'd done that, that was kind of like, right, I'm ready to go now.
What time of the year is the Ironman?
It was May,
Okay.
2 years back now.
So
Yeah.
it's okay because all your training's sort of not, I mean, winter and depressing and like, getting up before the sun and that. So you've started that training maybe December, Jan or something, right?
Yeah, got married in October. And then as soon as I came back, it was just like November, December, January, February, March, April, May. Yeah, so 7 months. And it's actually the start of May was when the race was.
What's your biggest lesson from that experience?
Just consistency. Like, I know it's kind of really cliche, but just keep doing the thing like, over and over again without kind of thinking about the end goal. Yeah, like going from bike to run, I thought I was a bit done. Like I thought I was a bit screwed up because as I went, your muscles are different muscles you're using. Yeah. And then as I got into the run, it was like, okay, like just one step in front of the other. But yeah, the other big lesson I took from it is getting around people that have been there and done it before, because they instill a belief that I really didn't have. Like I really thought I'd bitten off too much. Like this was a stupid move. Like, wow. And then obviously once you're into it and you're training, you're like doubts. Like you find it with the marathon training as well. Like doubts creep in. Whether
those
it's
long runs, man. You got time. You got time. The music almost fades out, or you do one with no music, and then you just. It's a very interesting experience. Yeah. If you're listening to this, I think as well, that's a maybe a marathon to first start and train up for. And I'd say like you need to do that.
Well, saying that, I did Gold Coast Marathon a couple of weeks ago and blew up at 37 Ks, just passed out, like, kind of paramedics over me, all that kind of stuff.
You're one of those.
Yeah, I dehydrated. Actually, the lessons learned there was dehydration and too much caffeine. But,
before the race or
during? Wow. Yeah. I didn't understand when I was trying to push for a time that I've never got before, a sub 3, which I didn't quite get.
Sub 3 is crazy as well, just for people out there that don't know marathon times.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered like just how tweaked everything needs to be, like hydration, nutrition, everything. So it was quite humbling, kind of. It was good as well. I learned some lessons. I kind of like to live by the kind of you win or you learn, and that was a learning for sure.
Respect, because I remember seeing the Strava, or I think what you posted was like your times leading up to it, and then there's like a 15-minute kilometer or something at 37, and then like
hearts at like 2:06 or something. I'm hoping it was an error in the data, to be honest, but
crazy. I think that's the funny part. You get to the 30k mark, and then you see who hasn't trained, because you see it's like a war zone. It's like you're running past people with the foil over them, collapse, calling paramedics. It's an experience. But one thing what I want to get into now, and what I usually like to touch on, is just a little bit of context around like who you are and all that kind of stuff. Two probably interesting things is, one is the decision to come over to Australia. I know you've been here for quite a while now, but that decision to come over and sort of find your bearings, get sorted, and then obviously doing your stint in your day job in recruitment, and then that, I like to always know what that trigger is for people to sort of pack that in. There's even I read a story last night about a good friend of mine, Mitch up on the Central Coast. He was on 190 grand and he quit his job and then decided to take up something else. So first tell me about, we're talking about transitions in the Ironman, but tell me about the transition over to Australia, finding your feet. Is it a holiday? Why do you come over?
Yeah, for my wife and I, we've been together a long time, so I'd say that kind of the stability like helped with us kind of moving over. Home is where the heart is type stuff. Yep. And so I went and studied in India for 4 months, learned how to write software, and I was back a kind of small step, but I was working as an IT support guy. Realized I wasn't really going to get anywhere fast there. So then I saved up £10,000 using just like these side hustles, buying and selling stuff.
Yeah, tell me about some of those, because I know they're funny.
Pirate DVDs, kind of selling just whatever I could get my hands on. Nothing illegal ever, but always just kind of whatever that thing was that people were after. Kind of finding that small market and taking it to a big market. Remember those hoverboards that were kind of pretty popular? Yeah, I kind of got into those. Had adverts. There was an advert. I think it's still on YouTube. Like Airblade 4K is the. It's just this little advert we put together, but we were shipping these things in from China. I remember at one point I sent offshore £20,000, which was everything I had, to get the next round of stock in. And I'm literally on WhatsApp with the lady, who I found on Alibaba, and Yeah, it was almost like I was dating her. I send her selfies like of myself in work and asking her to send selfies back of her in the factory because I just wanted to see like, is it real? Like, are you actually like, you're just trying to?
It is. I've done a little bit of that, and it's
sketchy.
it's
Like you're not
scary
sure.
as,
Like yeah,
because a lot of them use factory pics and stuff that people don't know about. Yeah.
So, but yeah, kind of like just the buying and selling stuff. Reinvested that in like becoming a software developer. And then kind of learned pretty quickly that wasn't a space for me either. Just writing code, headphones on, but I enjoyed speaking with people. And so fast forward, decided that it was a good time to kind of make some changes. And the plan was to come to Australia for 1 year, travel in Southeast Asia, pretty standard stuff.
That's how they all start.
So did that, and then came to Australia, and then 10 years later, still here. My parents, it's like funny. They were just like, "When are you coming home?" Like not like straight away. And then they were like, don't come home because it's clearly very good out there. Yeah. And then, I think now they're like talking like, when can we come and join you and like, hang out a bit more in Australia?
But tell me, finding your feet in Australia, how did you go about that? Because obviously like one thing that's incredible, and I think that everyone listening can take inspiration from, is that, I mean, if you're born in Australia and you grew up and your parents have looked after you, you're in the school, you understand how it all works here. But you're coming over fresh, trying to do a year of sort of travel, totally different climate to what you're used to, and just money, everything. Mm-hmm, how do you get established, and how do you find your feet?
Honestly, I look back thinking, what were we thinking? I don't know if you kind of believe like you kind of somewhat making decisions and like being guided somewhat. Like I don't believe in the universe or whatever. But I look back thinking like, what was I actually thinking? Like I remember my dad being like, "You're an idiot. You're leaving a stable job like with a Big Four consulting firm," and he's like, "What's your job when you get there?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'll work it out when I get there.
Wow.
Yeah, which I don't think is like too like. I think a lot of people do that now, and I feel like we're in such a connected world that. Like a friend of mine, his parents went to Japan like back in 20 or 19, like I don't know, 70s or something. No kind of connection the same way that we have now. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a real big move. But like coming over here, like you ask someone, who can I meet who's got a business and who can I like add value to. Got here and then got into laboring. I was like the first thing that I did was flipping stuff, like because that was what I knew how to do best. So I got this fold up bicycle and an iPad and all the different stuff I could buy off of Marketplace, and we just start like flipping it, and then got the white card and become a laborer and just kind of like just whatever I had to do. The funny thing is my wife's always like the one who would probably like steer away from change, and I'm the one that's like, let's just like go for it, like and then I'm the one that panics on the other side of that, being like, shit, what do we do? Like,
but she comes in and reinforces.
She's like, it's all good, like we'll be fine. Like she got a job, like I think it was like 60,000 a year or something, working at a taxi council, and she'd come home from work and be like, it's all good, like we're getting up, finding our feet. And I'd be doing the laboring, like flipping stuff on the side. And then I got a call from a recruitment company to be a software developer, which I didn't want to do again. But I was very grateful. Actually, I actually missed the first appointment. I just completely forgot that I was meant to be meeting this recruitment company and this guy. And he called me up and just said, "Oh, can you come in? Because we are actually interested in meeting with you for a software developer role." But it actually wasn't. He actually had heard me on the phone and wanted to try and convert me into a recruiter.
Really?
Yeah. As in, he just kind of, I guess, like, recognized that there was a skill set there that even if I didn't enjoy it, but then having someone who could talk on the phones, and that skill that, pommies are kind of given a visa for, like being able to chat on the phone and build relationships. And I went in and I kind of noticed after like 10 minutes that he was pitching the recruitment idea more than like this job that he had. Wow. And so, I came home and I remember it really clearly, like saying to my wife, like, recruitment, like, do you reckon I should give this a try? And she was like, well, I'm pretty sure you'd rather find out in a year's time and regret it, or it could be the best thing you ever did. And I was like, that's true. Like, I've literally got nothing to lose. I know I don't like doing software development. So what's the worst that can happen? And it actually turned out to be a really good thing, like, because once the commission checks eventually start kind of ramping up, and
you remember what is it just commission based there, or you remember what you
earned? It's a base salary and bonus. It was with one of the bigger recruitment companies to start with, which meant that they basically it's discretionary bonus. So they're, oh, well done, you build X amount for the company, we'll work out what your bonus is, and like, oh, here it is. It was all kind of like, it was discretionary. And so I then there's a friend at another recruitment company that was, a good trade of the value you bring versus what you actually take home. And that was a game changer. As in the first recruitment company, I think it was like 90,000 a year, and one of my bonus checks was 16,000 after a quarter of, as in a whole quarter.
That's cool.
And I went to the second recruitment company, and they said we would have paid you 60 for the same amount. And I was like, so it's as in one guy was paying me 16,000 for all that hard work, and the others would pay me 60.
Wow, so there's a bit of money to be made in recruitment, huh?
Definitely. And there was that, recruitment was amazing to get into and make some like good money. I mean, I don't know how much to go into numbers, but we're talking like, 400 or 500 a year.
Really?
Yeah.
Just for placing people.
As in all up, like as in there's a
salary and bonus structure.
Yeah, salary, bonus, super, like respect. All up, like it's which makes, as you mentioned, like it's harder to walk away from when you're making that transition into a 9 to 5, because it almost kind of, in my opinion, it kind of almost traps you in a little bit, because you kind of, whether you like it or not, you're hooked on that kind of money. And then depending on if you build your lifestyle around that money, which I steered clear of, like as in I had a mentor at the time who kind of said, don't try and keep up with the Joneses, like just reinvest that money. Yep. I went to see this financial advisor. I had no idea what I was doing. And the guy just said, look, to give you an idea, like that kind of money you would normally earn as a surgeon or a realtor for these jobs. I never went to uni.
Or a buyer's agent.
You're a buyer's agent, yeah.
Yeah.
But I never went to uni. So it was like, okay, like I need to not like ruin this kind of opportunity. So then started invested in property. Kind of
does financial advisor push you into that, or where does
they want? Yeah, as it turns out, they were a funnel to. It's actually a podcast back in the day. Then it was the hey, we can be your buyer's agent, your broker, all that kind of stuff. And then I wanted to learn though. I wanted to learn how to do it. I didn't want to just kind of give someone the money and then just pick me a property and then I have to go back again. I wanted to learn to fish, not just be given the fish.
I mean, this sounds like a paid advert for me, and like how I position things. Probably why we're great mates.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's the same with me. Is that like it's a lot of cash to part with.
Transparency is just so important, especially nowadays. Like I think people just and it's fine. I think if there's clips being taken, as long as like clients know like where that's happening, which is what we built the business around as well. Is that it's funny how many people, I know we'll get into that stuff, but people will be like, so is the builder paying you? Or like, how are you getting your other clips? And we're like, we're not getting any other clips other than what we charge you, which is transparent. So yeah, they basically kind of opened my eyes up to like, don't try and keep up with the Joneses, don't try and buy the flash watches, and just like actually start investing. So I started listening to loads of podcasts, like some that I've like, hence the reason this is like such a good podcast to come onto as well, because you think there's so many people that are at different stages, whether they're just thinking about getting started or they're like fully into
on the 400-500 grand or something,
or
maybe a bit less,
maybe feeling a bit trapped by like, oh, do I really want to have a mortgage, kids, and all these different pressures like tied to that salary that eventually a life gets built around that, where it's not as easy to make those changes. Yeah, so first property, I knew that I wanted to kind of get in and make the most of all the first-time home buyer. Yep. So that was a $600,000 buy, which was I worked out was the optimum kind of buy price to get the grant. There's a grant from the government.
Yeah. How far back?
2019.
Okay. Yeah. Relative.
So and then there was no stamp duty. So you were basically like cash in was $55K just to kind of, nice. Just to get the first like property. Yeah. Intention was
location?
Canterbury
in Sydney.
Yeah. 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom.
Unit.
Yeah.
Say less.
I negotiated with my wife that I wanted to go out. Where was it? It was much further out, kind of Riverston or
Riverview, Riverston.
It was much further out.
Both of those are suburbs.
In Sydney?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Riverston, yeah.
It was much further out. It would have meant like an hour and a half commute to work, but we could have got a 4-bedroom house for the same money. Like, actually, I think even looking back, like 600,000 for a 4-bedroom house, but it was definitely possible. Like, I think you were paying more like 650. But she was like, I'm not traveling, 3 hours back and forth from work. So, the kind of the middle ground was like this 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, which we, yeah.
Bought to live in or bought it as an investment?
No, to live in. The
Okay.
intention was to live in it. Like that was our first property, but I knew that there was like a game to play kind of after that. So I was like, well, 55K just to get the first property. And like for me it was just to understand like the process, the finance process, the legal process. I was fortunate enough to meet a close friend and mentor, business partner now as well, who basically like shared his insights as to how to just to go through that process without getting stung by whether it's things like strata costs and like having a pool, all the lifts, all that kind of stuff, like just what to steer clear of. And also serviceability, like you are going to run out of servicing at some point, which he'd run into, and kind of was passing that lesson learned back down, because like I think quite a lot of people don't realize that eventually the banks will be like, nah, you've had enough now. No, which is different to the UK. The UK, if you keep on coming up with a deposit, like
really,
yeah. I think it's more like 30% deposits, but you can keep going like with the banks.
There's no serviceability in the UK,
as far as I'm aware. Like based on all the conversations I've had, like
guys, we're in the wrong we're investing in the wrong country.
Yeah, as long as you got the deposits and the bank like the property in the UK, like you can keep going.
That's incredible.
You have to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's different per like country. So that was the first property, and then after a few months we were like, okay, this is we've now got a bit of cash like left over because we'd spent only a small amount to get in. And a few people were kind of like, well, why would you buy a 2-bedroom 2-bathroom, like, you know, fairly like low cost
What's it worth
unit?
now?
Maybe like eight, maybe not. They built a lot of apartments in that area, which meant that it saturated a little bit. So it might not have gone up as much as I thought. But we like moved out of that. At the same time, then bought some townhouses up in Queensland, off the plan. They did well. I think we paid like $420 or something, or $405 per townhouse, and that was like 20Ks from the CBD, kind of. And that was just to start offsetting some of the
money that you're bringing in.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Tax was killing me.
How are you coming into find that purchase? Like, what research you're doing? Is this still webinars and the funnel?
Webinars.
You're talking off the plan, and then you're talking off the plan again. So I'm thinking, is this the same sort of company that's funneling you in those opportunities?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. The first property, I went and spoke to lots of different buyers agents, and I just felt like my head had been scrambled after every person I spoke to. Like, I just felt like that everyone's obviously got their own take on. So I just kept on leaving those calls being like, I don't actually have a clear direction. I thought I did. And then it's almost like I was getting spun on the spot by some of those people. And buyers agents do a great job, like, don't get me wrong. But when you're speaking to kind of a few of them that have all got their different target markets, your clarity starts to disappear, or at least for mine anyway. And so I just went, no, I'm not using a buyer's agent. I'm just going to use the fundamentals that I'd learned. Found this 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, brand new apartment, went and checked it out. The real estate agent had one in that block, you know, that kind of stuff, which he actually did. And he's been a great guy, from like the end-to-end sales management, and then even afterwards, like, we've kept in contact. But I kind of bought into his authenticity that actually it was a good build. And that was the first one. And then the second two actually did come from a little bit of a channel. You go to the event, and then you get someone else stands up on stage and says, you know, the opportunity of a lifetime's turned up, and all that kind of stuff.
That's a coincidence. Same place.
Every time. Like, we got 2 of those townhouses, and this is while juggling the day job. And then during that time was doing the first JV deal with my business partner. He had a block of land. Actually, I should go back a step. Before we bought the first property, I got into the JV.
Okay.
And the reason why I did that is that I had cash but no visa to get a mortgage. So that was actually the first property deal I got into before buying the property in Canterbury.
What does the JV look like?
It looks like a very...
So this is the guy that you met at the seminars?
No, just in the day job.
In the day job,
yeah. Bit ahead of me in terms of experience in property, run into the serviceability issues, and kind of passing on some nuggets of wisdom, like as I was making a start. And he had a block of land, and I had some cash but no visa to go and use it for a mortgage or any kind of serviceability. And I came home one night and just said to my, not wife at the time, but wife now, I was like, I've just invested, or I'm going to invest in this project with this guy. And she's like, who the hell's this guy? Like, it was $50,000, which was...
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh,
But it was... it felt like a lot of the time to us. Like, that was probably
Come
like...
on, man, you're getting big bonuses.
Yeah,
50K.
yeah. Oh, but that was before I was ramping the bonuses.
Okay.
Those kind of numbers on the salary is like, once you kind of take in flight. Like, but that was like a decent chunk for us at the time, especially as we just put 50 went into that, and then we wanted to be able to get into the first deal once we got a visa. So yeah, that was like 18 months later, 12 months later, the return came back off the back of the 50K that I'd put in. Yeah. And so
what was that for then?
Duplex. We built a duplex on the land up in Newcastle.
And you only need 50K?
As in, no, I was just contributing some equity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just got a fixed return on that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, it's not much to
run
with the project. So he just needed maybe a top up or something.
Yeah, I think it was more an opportunity for me to learn than him actually needing the cash. So yeah, and obviously kind of lightens the load from an equity perspective for him. So yeah, did that as the first project. So kind of into the first property deal before we actually owned the property in Canterbury. And then did the townhouses. And then after that duplex was built, my wife was like, you should probably do more with this guy because something seems to be working quite well. I think it was like a 40% return on...
40?
Yeah. Wow. Which is... And actually it was, looking back, it was very favourable towards me.
Oh, 100%.
Because the land had gone up in value.
Yeah.
And I did kind of...
40% return is...
Yeah. I kind of like jokingly argued the point that we really should start the investment return from when I actually got in, as in the value of the land. And he was kind of like, all good. Like, we're just going to use like when I bought it all the way through to when it was finished. So, And so, after that, I went and bought some commercial property. And we're kind of like, going into different seminars and just kind of like some good, some not so good. Start to kind of, do the 3-day event, the 2-day events. Yeah. And then eventually you're kind of paying some big bucks for education.
You've got, one thing I admire is you've got a really interesting, I suppose, mindset / philosophy around that expense for the price for those education, those events and that kind of stuff, because you've outlaid quite a bit of money, you've done a lot of events. Can you just touch on what your thinking is around paying all that money? Because a lot of people are scared or want everything for free, but you're quite the opposite.
Yeah, I didn't go to university, and the reason for that is all my mates were going to university without any idea why they were going there. Like, as in, a lot of them kind of, it's just the thing to do. And yeah, for me, it was like, no, let's get into some real experience and just get a job. And knew that I wasn't in debt from education in the UK from uni. And so once I kind of had a little bit, I wasn't a big fan of school, like genuinely was just like bored of it. I didn't understand how it connected to the real world. And so
it doesn't, but
like I don't think it's like, it hasn't evolved the way it needs to. So yeah, like kind of fast forward, I kind of, I guess, took the risk or the chance that actually this was the right type of education that does connect me to the real world. And so then when I started meeting people who are actually a few steps ahead in property development, and they would say, yeah, I did this course and that course, and I've done a Tony Robbins, and I've done all these different like types of things. And I was like, okay, like if I'm going to model someone and connect the dots between where I am now and where this person who's stood in front of me is, like, I think it's fairly low risk just to do whatever courses that that's been good for them. And so, yeah, like, did the free events, then started doing the kind of, $2,000, 2-day events. And I think, one of them like was a bit of a chunky deal. I think between the two of us, we spent $50,000 on a course. Which I don't regret. I recognized that the amount of education was actually way over our heads. Yep. It was way over my head, certainly. But the people that we met who were also committed to the tune of $50,000 in that room, like there's some people that I'm still friends with now who are smashing it, like they're killing it because they were that committed to be in that room. That was the best thing that came out of there, like not even the education. Wow. Because all the lessons learned that then we were able to share. Yeah. There's actually one guy who invited me to a Roosters business event only last week.
Saw that, yeah. Jealous as. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. Like, I can go back to 2017 maybe, And he was one of the first people I messaged because his name had come up on one of the boards at one of the events of like this guy who's doing really well. And I messaged him because I wanted to like check him out and be like, hey, so I messaged him, like, can we grab a coffee sometime? And he didn't respond. And I'm sure he gets a lot of those messages. But yeah, now like we like, catch up all the time, and we're actually like both doing lots of stuff. And I mean, he's absolutely killing it. But the people that I met in those courses was without a doubt the best thing about it.
It's that people in the who you know, right?
I actually had a guy reach out, friend of a friend, and he reached out and said, hey, I heard you were in recruitment and you've now gone full-time property.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, and he wanted to meet for a coffee, and I genuinely like didn't have the time to sit down, but I wanted to kind of obviously help. Because I think you'll find people that help you if you're constantly helping other people as well. It's a bit of a flow to it. I just said to him, look, here's the courses that I really wouldn't recommend based on my experience. And like, not to say that they're not great, but that was just my experience. And then here's the ones that were really good. And so I think it was like 2 months later, he texted me to be like, right, I've done that course now. And I was like, cool, like this guy's actually, he wants to do it. Like, yeah. So I need to catch up with him and actually meet for a coffee. And, but yeah, I think he's also in recruitment working out what to do with those commission checks as opposed to just wasting them.
Man, it's totally the same. And I've done the same with, now that I've sort of talked a little bit more about my story and going into development, I've had some people, ton of people reach out and be like, look, like, how'd you do this? Or what are you thinking with that? And how you structure that? And I'm like, man, this is it. And yeah, I feel like it's just, it's not even, I can't even describe, I wouldn't even be able to put a reason on why I do it. But I think if it's the right person, you can know pretty quickly via conversation and hopefully give them some golden nuggets to go on with. Some people, it's an absolute waste of time and they don't do anything with it. And then other people, like you said, will come back and say that they've done it. You touched on it there, that transition out. So when does that get to a point, you're obviously quite senior in your career, you're earning those big dollars now. What is the sort of that moment or that transition out, and how did you find it? How did you plan for it? How did you structure it?
Yeah, quite simply put, I put 100 grand in the bank and refinanced a few properties that have gone up in value, and was like, this is the right time now. I quite a visual person. I kind of imagined like filling up the oxygen tank to go scuba diving and making sure that I had enough oxygen to last for 12 months.
So for you, that was the equity release?
Yeah, equity release. And then the cash in the bank was just like, okay, that's real kind of emergency. I mean, it was a lot to kind of put as an emergency fund. Yeah. Like, fortunately, I was able to kind of carve that off. But yeah, my wife and I sat down, and I used to laugh at these videos that I'd see, the people doing personal finances and like mapping out with their wife the Excel spreadsheet. And I'm like, those people are just taking control of their lives. And so yeah, I sat down with her and we went through everything that we spend money on. And then we divided it up between musts and wants. So like the musts being like the dog food and like, insurance.
Discretionary, non-discretionary.
Yeah.
This is, I did a podcast last week about, or a few weeks ago, that I was literally about, this is how I saved 100 grand for one of my first properties to get into. And it was that. It was going through and saying, do I need this? Do I actually need this bill, or is it a want?
Mm-hmm. And you realize how much money you're wasting. And sometimes, like, it's not, as they say, like, I think any business, Elon Musk did it with Twitter, but you go into a business and the first thing you can do is, like, cut costs. That's the quickest way of stemming the bleeding. And so, like, if you think about it, you're literally bleeding, like, without realizing, just, like, money being wasted on that's not actually moving you forward. So, yeah, we worked through, like, the must, the needs, the wants, and then I think it was, like, it might have been like $7,000 a month or something that we just worked out, which was the needs and the wants. And then I was like, okay, well, I don't want to reduce my wife's, not that she's like, big spender or anything, but like brunch, once at the weekend is like,
they do live in Bondi, so I can see.
I didn't want that to like have to disappear, and we all take those sacrifices. Like the sacrifices I felt like we were already like going to be taking, like just by making that switch. So yeah, like that was how I did the maths, was just like, what am I going to spend per month, the needs and the wants? How can we cut back a little bit and then just park that in the bank? And then what's the worst that can happen? Like I really believe that you leave, if you leave on a good note from anyone that you worked with, they'll take you back at any time. So I remember clearly, and I say this as humbly as possible, but I was kind of up there with their number one, number two, like salespeople. And so I noticed that as I was kind of juggling both the day job plus the 9 to 5 plus the 5 to 9, I started to slip down that leaderboard. And so I never wanted to fall outside of their top 10. That was kind of my commitment, that if they gave me a massive opportunity to earn some great money to then go and do something good with it. And so you only get one name in the market. And so I wanted to make sure that as long as I finished up there and they would have me back in an instant, like I'd done the right thing. And so, that was hard though. Like trying to stay in that kind of top 3 salespeople while things were building on the side. And then, eventually, it was just time to
parting ways. What was the plan to roll into, like, I mean, $7,000 a month, great living expenses, $84,000 for a couple living in the East. So what was the plan in terms of like project or development? What did you feel like, this is what I'm going to go out and do? Or what were you building in that 5 to 9 space? Like, sort of for people that, like, I know what you do and I know the projects, but like, give people sort of a bit of a rundown, like what was the business model or what was the thinking?
Yep. Business model evolved fairly organically from a place of how do we get the most return for our own cash? Like the business kind of came from us solving a problem for ourselves, which was how do we get this commission checks and put it in? We can either put it into small development deals and build, sell. You obviously pay a lot of tax when you're doing that. Yeah. And there was quite a lot of the seminars that would talk about, why the traditional development model, it's high risk, high reward. You pay a lot of tax. And then we were also buying commercial property at the same time, and that was great for cash flow. But when you're buying stable assets that are at market value, you're eventually going to run out of cash, and you kind of pause at that point. So we literally looked at, okay, we're selling the duplex that was creating chunk, then there was commercial property that was bringing in cash flow. And we thought, well, how can we do both? As in, like, and the first thing was, okay, well, building a big shopping center, we don't have $20 million but that was like our idea of, like, if we can build commercial property, then that's like, and then we worked our way through the price point and came across the 1B accommodation, which was for us was like a good price point to be able to get in, build, refinance, and close to kind of leaving as much cash in there as possible. So we did a proof of concept. We actually sold down the commercial portfolio because we recognized that our cash flow was just going to stay stable, like until it grows based on the market. We weren't able to force any more equity growth or cash flow.
Getcha.
It was. I remember one of the guys speaking was like, you need to choose strategies that force like value on the property, not just sit back and wait for the market to grow. Because although it works as a strategy, I'd rather wait for the market to move as the first level and then do a subdivision and stack the strategies. That was we found this site. It was a 1 into 3 lot subdivision. Had sold down the commercial portfolio, and actually no, we hadn't. We had the commercial portfolio at the time, and we had some cash to do that first project. It was only after that we realized, no, we need to do more of that, the development stuff.
Okay, well, talk me through the numbers on like the first one, if you remember, high level.
Yeah. So Brisbane, maybe 15 k's from the CBD, in a suburb called Deagon. It was 290k for a 300 square meter block of land.
300?
Yeah, 300 squares. So it was 290k, 290. This was a subdivision that had already been done by a builder. And so I found the sites, they'd just gone online. We were looking for how can we get into this without having all of the risk, as in the risk of a subdivision, the risk of construction, the risk of the planning.
Got you.
So 290, and then there was a block at the back that was part of the 3, and it was like 600 square meters, and I think it was 410. We got the first 2 under contract, and we look at the back thinking the numbers don't stack anywhere near as much as the front 2 blocks. Like once you've got the land at 290, I think build back then was like 500k. Then you're putting furniture in, but the back one just didn't look as appealing because of the land price. And then we decided to control the whole site. Would we rather have slightly kind of lower numbers on the rear property?
You're talking a battle axe block?
No, it was a 1 into 3 with a shared driveway that went down the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the front two were small and the back one was a bit larger.
Yeah.
Okay,
It had to be. I
gotcha.
think the planning rules were 600 squares and
On that battle axe.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, got ya. Sorry.
And yeah, so then we picked that up, built, and then at the end we're just astounded by the numbers. Like the rents. This was actually going into COVID. And so we actually built steel frames instead of timber because all commodities were doing like, crazy stuff at the time. The builder came back kind of cup in hand to be like, we can't build at these numbers anymore, the contracts that we'd signed. And so we negotiated, we went up on the buy price, but the build numbers, but we didn't kind of go too high. We didn't go the full 30% or whatever commodities we're doing at the time. What was really surprising with that first project is the quality of tenants that came in to the property.
So run me through a little bit around type of property design and all that kind of stuff too, because I'm sitting in the seat of the audience that's watching this and not knowing what you're actually building.
Got it.
But I know what you are, so I want to give them that context too.
Yeah. So we built three dwellings that were all 1B accommodation, which is a classification is rooming accommodation. And we steer away from that word because rooming accommodation, depending on who you speak to, normally conjures up, okay, is it a boarding house? And then the quality of tenants tends to not be where we wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. So micro apartments is not a new term, and other people, use the term, but that's how we kind of had people ask what a micro apartment is, as opposed to, a rooming house, and therefore here's all the other assumptions that go with that. Mm-hmm. So we were building 3 rooming houses or 3 micro apartment buildings. Within each building is then 5 purposely designed different living areas. So co-living is like another name for it. Mm-hmm. And instead of going in and having lots of common area and a small amount of private area, they're designed in a way that had a lot of private area and a little bit of common area. So it's still keeping within all the regulations and rules, but just basically like enhancing the experience for the tenants. As you walk from the street front, this building would be like any other building in the street. It just looks like a big 5-bedroom house.
Single story?
Single story at the back and then double story at the front.
Okay.
There's a difference of build costs, obviously, and then you're paying a premium for more land. So it's just a bit of a trade-off between land price and the build prices. Yep. That was the 2 at the front that were double story, and then 1 at the back that was single story. And then every tenant gets their own. Well, there's 6 different living spaces. So there's a bedroom, bathroom, living area, dining area, outdoor area, and kind of like a tea and coffee station. So it's kind of a lot more private space than...
What size are these rooms we're talking?
30 square meters. Okay. Maybe 28 to 30. Mm-hmm. We went to... In New South Wales, there's a big place out west called Life Size, and you get your plans.
The plans, yeah.
Most people go there to plan their big family home, and maybe developers do as well. But we went there and we put our plan that we were trying to play with it to see, could we go smaller on the rooms? Do we how big does a room need to be before it starts to feel small? And so we kind of, after going through that exercise, recognized that the 27, 28 square meters and above feels spacious, but then below that starts to feel like a little bit too cramped. And our thinking was like, it's all about tenant experience. They're ultimately who's paying, the rent. And so the classification of accommodation 1B, when we look back at like how it was done previously, like there's probably more people than we would like who focused on investor returns as opposed to the quality of the tenant experience. And like I say this all the time, but it's not like we were trying to put, gold taps or, some kind of stupid finishes, but it was like, what can we do to find the right balance between great investment, but also great for the tenant? And so, once we furnished it in a good way, like a level that we would want to actually live in it ourselves, we started to have like good tenants turn up. And like what was really surprising is CEOs of companies that for whatever life reason, divorce, whatever, they're choosing to live in these for sometimes 6 months, and then it turns out they then stay there for up to 2 years. Like that's kind of the 18 months average. Wow. And then people that are 55 plus that there's one lady, I tell this story fairly often. She moved into the apartment, rented out her big empty nest. Kids had left. I think it was like 2,000 a week she was able to rent this house for, and she then rented one of the apartments for 400 a week, all bills included, like massive convenience play. And the husband was in a home nearby. That's the reason why she moved. And so the husband passed away unfortunately after 6 months, but at the same time she renewed for another 12 months. So like, well, her reason to be close by is now gone. Like, why wouldn't she just go back to her home? And so we interviewed her, like unofficially, but kind of just asked if we could ask a few questions. Hey, we're on behalf of the company that owns these. And she's just like, it's just so easy. Like, it's so, cash flow positive from renting out her house. She's actually like, superannuation might not have been doing as great as she expected. And she stayed there for another 12 months. So that kind of showed us that, okay, if we put on the right tenant experience, we can attract the right tenants. And then we kind of just, it's nothing groundbreaking, but if you get the right tenant experience, you get great tenants. And if you've got great tenants, you've got a great asset.
Yep.
So it just kind of built everything around tenant experience.
And so these are renting at about $400 a week?
Now they are. When we ran those numbers based on that first project, the 290, 410 for the buy price of land, we ran the numbers at like maybe 280 a week.
Wow.
Yeah. I think definitely wasn't into the threes, but we had like 310 as like maybe we can get that.
Yeah.
And that was through COVID when all the prices went crazy as well, rent wise.
So then what do they end up yielding after costs? Because there's a little bit more costs. What do you do with the property management side of it? And how do you sort of come out of those deals cash flow wise? And that?
Yeah. So if you take just one of those dwellings, at the time they were renting for like 300, 310 a week. And now they're up to kind of in the fours a week. 4 times 5 times 52. Don't challenge me on my maths, but
104 grand.
And so then we take out like 25% of costs, like operational costs. Then depending on how leveraged you are with a mortgage, kind of leaves you, if you're really pushing it, I think you end up nowadays with interest rates at like 30, 40K kind of net. Where if there's one guy that we work with and he just cash funds everything. And so he's taking,
different
85K, I think it is a year. And so
per one of these.
Yeah, per one of these. So it's, for that, one of those projects would be back then anyway, kind of like a 2 mil, it was 1 mil, 1.1 per dwelling. So
total costs.
Okay. Yeah.
So even interest. So 1 mil if you're in for, obviously, even if you're in for 100% of debt, which you wouldn't be, but that'll be 60, 65. And if you're saying that, there's at least 20, 25 odd grand there. Yeah. If you're at 100%, but obviously coming into it with 20, 30%. So there's a bit of route.
It certainly made a lot more sense to us than negatively gearing residential property also in a similar area and just tying ourselves to a job where, you're getting the depreciation.
And it takes a while for that rent to grow and stuff. Yeah. Resi investment, I always say, is the safest, but is also the slowest. So I feel like these sort of micro apartments, I'll use the term for you, is a good way to sort of cash flow. So that was like your sort of first one, and then is the model to be able to do these for investors? How do you get the runs on the board? How do you bring the money in? How do you start to grow and do more of these projects? Yeah, so after we did the first proof of concept, and it came out great, with the rents and the quality of tenants. We went and did more of that. We obviously needed some equity to keep going. So we sold down the commercial portfolio, rolled that in to doing more projects. So we did probably 3 or 4 more like that, and then ultimately run out of cash. And so we started raising funds. It was actually easier than I expected because people were quite interested in what we had done with that first project. And so because of, our big goal is to create 1,000 homes by 2030. We're probably 250 plus on the way there so far. So a home being, there's 5 in a dwelling. So it's kind of, our idea being is that if you can get more homes into the market, you can make a small dent on the housing crisis. And if you can make sure that's appealing to an investor, you'll keep the fuel coming through the door in whatever model you choose to keep getting these kind of up. We did a few more projects using the cash that came from the commercial portfolio. And then... and that sort of bankrolled you guys in terms of salary covering costs?
No, we're still in day jobs while we're doing that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of both horses kind of riding at the same time.
So we're going back a bit. I thought this was post post
No,
quitting
we're
the
going
day
back
job?
to 2019
So
to
still
2020.
just in the okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would have finished up in the day job just over 14 months.
Yep, a couple of years ago.
And then business partner was a bit further but back than that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were just kind of juggling the day job and doing this on the side.
Yeah.
And then we started kind of raising some cash, like where investors were like, I love what you're doing, and they do a fixed return with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed us to do a few more projects.
So you're bringing investors to do your own projects and giving them a fixed return after financing out.
Yep.
And paying them back.
Yep. And going through COVID, there was a couple of projects that we were able to pay them back and keep the assets, so like a no money down, which I don't know whether we could replicate again, but we basically started then with the first project where we didn't do the subdivision. We then started stacking subdivision into it. So depending on how well the subdivision goes, kind of we're close to being able to kind of pay investors back and keep the assets.
And then when do you transition and do what point do you get to on those first couple cash flow wise? Is enough to cover you both and quit? Is that the trigger too?
No, we're kind of leveraging as hard as possible to kind of get as much out and go again. So that was the juggle. Yep. We did a few more of those projects using investor cash. And then inevitably, like a few of those people came back to us and said, "Can you just build these for me? Like I don't have the time. I love development, but never made that leap into it. I've been to these different things and learned all the theory about development." And so we just started rinsing and repeating the same model, but just instead, I called it DAS, Development as a Service. Just thought let's just put a name to it, where it basically encapsulates everything from finding the right site all the way through to subdivision, construction, and then handover, as in handover with tenants already kind of in. So pretty much like from start to finish. So instead of buying a commercial property, you're building a commercial property and holding it, in your SPV the whole time. And so those same guys that had lent cash were just like, "Can you just build this for me? I've got residential property, I've got commercial property. So if I can add some commercial residential is technically what it's classed as, but if I can add some property that we've actually added value to and then rented out cash flow positive." I would guess there's a few guys as well that don't necessarily need to talk about us being in frame delivering it, because Aussies love property, right? As in, that's one thing. When I first got here, I loved how open people talk about property and and it being a vehicle to build wealth. So we just started that whole development as a service. So we've now got kind of guys that want to just get a fixed return on their cash and park that for 2 years and get a return that's far better than what they would get in the bank.
Yep.
Then there's development as a service, where people are actually like, "Can you just build this for me?" And then the last is more traditional, which is JV. So they'll put in the cash, we'll build it, and then we'll sell at the end, which we've got a couple of those, like just to kind of pay down some debt.
Who's your main profile? Because I just want to make sure that we're not setting an impression that, this is people maybe that are thinking about their first property. They go, "Oh, these things that are yielding cash, these micro apartments." But it's obviously, and for me, I see it as someone that's a lot more mature with a lot more potentially foundation and stability in the portfolio, that then has that extra money and wants to diversify further.
Yeah, it's only sophisticated investors that we've worked with. I think, as in, to give you a real picture, let's just call it someone who's 50, 60 plus. They've made some great decisions in property. They've built a portfolio, and they're kind of getting close or starting to think about retirement, and they're literally looking at the portfolio, and I'll just throw some numbers, but they might go, "Oh, the portfolio is worth $10 million. That's great." And then what's the cash flow dripping out the bottom? It's like, that's not great. And so it's kind of, that's what we've found is it's those guys who want to sell down or refinance or just kind of get more out of that equity that they've created. Yeah.
So that consolidation and that sort of end play. What's the cash? What's the typical cash required for one of these? If I'm not going to fund the whole thing in cash, but if I'm just going in there with, I don't know, maybe 60, 70% LVR, I'd say, are people doing just to make sure I've got cash flow maybe?
Yeah.
What's your, let's break down a deal in terms of numbers so people can get in their heads.
Our model is to do a subdivision for the client, as in, so that I've seen it done before where, a block of land is being sold with the build to the client, as in similar kind of product. but there's no uplift from the subdivision that the client's getting at that point. So instead it's like, okay, well, our model is that we'll find a property that can be subdivided 1 into 2, 1 into 3, let's just use a 1 into 2. They probably need, when I'm talking to someone, I'm trying to get as quickly as possible to, do you have about 800 to $1 million in equity or cash? And if they do, then it's like a further conversation to be had, because there's a lot of people that do have underperforming portfolios.
Yeah.
And
negatively geared.
Yeah.
Cost of money.
Totally. And so I just don't think that even those sophisticated investors like recognize some of those options that they have available, especially when they partner with someone who is just doing the same thing over and over again. Like it brings, in my opinion, brings a huge amount of predictability to an area like development, which isn't normally like that predictable, as in there's a lot of unpredictability, like high risk, high reward. So like if there's guys that have got 800 to $1 million either equity they can access or cash, then we can pretty much just find them a property, do a subdivision, like build all the way through to here's the keys to a fully furnished, fully tenanted. And what
are we talking about? End value, cash flow, and all those kinds of things. What would you say? That's like one thing I think about straight away, and that the sort of narrative with Australian property and like investing is the issue I see. If that is equity, is that you have a loan on top of a loan. Equity is not cash that isn't tied to a loan that has repayment. So with these things, I think if you're trying to get into them, you're almost better off doing that in cash, so that you have a low LVR. Because if you go into it with equity that you're paying 6% on, and then you obviously some sort of LVR there, your equity on equity that your cash flow is probably not going to be great at the end of it. So what it's like if we go, say I've got $1 million cash, where does that leave me at the end in terms of asset value, rent, cash flow, and all that kind of stuff? If let's use $1 million, keep it round numbers. And
they've refinanced. And
so I've went to my portfolio. I've went, you know what? I'm going to sell off a couple of underperforming ones, or ones that I've held for 20, 30 years. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. I've got $1 million in cash now. And I like the idea of these just because of the cash flow of them. Run me through maybe just the numbers on what that project would look like in terms of value, rents, loan that they might have against that. So just we can get an understanding. So testing you a bit.
It depends on which suburb they're in, and it depends on what rents are coming through the door. Based on like what the valuation's coming at. But
give me conservative.
Yeah. And so if you kind of take that 1 into 2 subdivision, you're obviously paying stamp duty on the way in on a residential property, which instead of buying the assets at the end, you'd be paying a lot more stamp duty. And so all the way through to completed, I think there's comparable sales now depending on what suburb you're in of like 1.4 to 1.45. And
what's the original land cost?
If let's use another deal that we've done, which is a 1 into 2, that where we did the subdivision. So it was in.
You don't have to say suburb. You can keep that.
Okay. I just wonder how much.
Don't. I mean, that's your bread and butter, and that's a bit of your IP.
Yeah. Okay.
So state is fine, and
Queensland. Yeah. Brisbane City Council, 20k is out from the CBD.
Okay. Probably given too much.
Yeah.
I can find that. No.
It's good to help people with suburb selection. It was purchase price was $650.
Wow.
It was then, you can do the stamp duty and the acquisition cost on that. The client cash purchased that property. We then did a subdivision, which was meant to be about 150-ish, and it ended up being 170. Turns out that if in Brisbane City Council anyway, if there's a slope towards the road that's too steep, they want you to give upstream access using an easement for the property behind. So it's kind of like increasing the value of their property. But so that kind of added a few extra costs. But they're like subdivision at like 170. They were 2 high set builds. I think at the time was like 550-ish, kind of all costs in. Each. Yep. So 1.1, and then that's now rent. They would now be worth 1.45 each. So 2.9.
And what sort of yield are we getting on that?
7.5 net and probably 10% gross.
Okay. So all up, if I just think of this, if I go 650 land, 50, LMI and other costs, I'm in for 7. I've got 850 with the subdivision, and then I've got 1.1 with the build.
Yep.
So I'm all in for probably 2 mil.
Yeah, 2.1.
Probably got a debt on that of, let's call it 1.5, meaning my interest repayments are probably going to be, call it 90 grand if I've put in that much.
Yep, across both.
Across both.
And then the rents on that one now I know is like 430 times 10 times 52. So
430 a week?
430 a week, per lease. And there's 10 leases on there.
So 4,300 a week times up by 52.
Yeah. Then take off 25% of your op costs.
So 220 times take off 180. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So 180, I said my debt was maybe 90. So there's about 90, 100 grand passive income cash flow if you're going in at those sorts of amounts.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
So,
How do you find my developer mind starts going a bit crazy in this? How do you find obtaining funding for these? Because obviously some banks only resi black and white, it is what it is. With these, some might perceive the risk. Mm-hmm. If you're finding there's many issues with getting into these deals?
I've found that it's, if someone understands the asset class, we actually did try using some buyer's agents kind of back in the day to add some more kind of acquisitions. But again, the understanding there needed to be on point as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the understanding let's work backwards from the property manager that manages them at the end, mm-hmm. from the builder that builds them, from a regulation perspective, and from a funding perspective, and then obviously valuations as well. Like if any of those people don't, and I'm sure there's others, but if there's any of those people don't really understand 1B, mm-hmm. Then you're kind of in a bit, are you in trouble? Yeah, maybe you're not getting the best outcome. So valuations, they're not sure how to value them correctly, what different cap rates to use. Then from a funding perspective, they just stick big LVRs on and interest rates because they're not really sure how to risk profile the asset class.
So there is risk there, but you need to have the right team.
And that's pretty much exactly what the whole development as a service was, is that we've had made all the small mistakes, unfortunately not anything too major, but we'd learned and stubbed our toe enough times that people coming into that were like, yeah, if I can get that outcome, I'm happy to kind of pay for the package holiday, mm-hmm. The everything from the great restaurants, great flights, great accommodation. But there was a couple of guys that would say, I've got my own property managers, and we're like, that's fine if you're choosing to get your own return flights, and that's not what we suggested, and mm-hmm. it doesn't turn out to be as good as you expected. That's on you. Yeah. So there's the freedom for them to use whoever they would want, although at the start of it, we want to make sure that, do you want to get the outcome that we've managed to achieve? And here's the team that we use, or here's the panel of people. We don't have I don't think we have any one supplier, but we've kind of worked out who the guys are who can get to that outcome. Yeah, great. And so that's pretty much what they're investing in, is being able to go, here's my cash in one end of this black box, and out the other end comes these commercial properties that are in my portfolio. Mm-hmm. So it's just simplifying. And don't get me wrong, I also had there's also been those people that have come, signed up for the development as a service, if I keep calling it that, and they're like, well, I want to design the walls differently, or I want to change the internal floor plan, and then I'd like to kind of change these colors and whatever. And we're like, well, we're not building the owner occupier. This is about getting the best return for your cash, mm-hmm. In an investment asset, which should be as quiet as possible in the portfolio. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of just slowly put the kind of the brakes on any changes, and to the point where it was well, if you don't want to just basically follow the same process that we followed to the outcome, then we're probably not the right guys for you. Yeah. Which is actually, in hindsight, made me realize that's why some of those guys who didn't know us would be like, well, if you're taking us to all these different suppliers, then you clearly must be getting a clip from them.
Yeah, you're that guy, bro.
Because obviously that is a model that a lot of people use, and there's all these hidden costs and whatever. So yeah, when we would show them the DD, it would be literally our DD document plus a line item for us. And I think, that was kind of a bit a great way of building clients' trust, where we're that is the only thing that you're paying for, mm-hmm. As in there is no other clips. So I forget kind of where we came from in terms of the question. I kind of feel like I've gone down a bit of a path.
It was just the struggles of financing these, refinance out too. Yes. But obviously, if you find the right team, then you have because a lot of like I see it all the time is that whenever it gets a little bit different to the norm, like the banks just go 50% LVR, and you go, well, fuck, come on. You know what I mean? So as long as I just want to know, like, if there's that proof of concept there, was there's those teams. The valuation too can sometimes come up and be very different, which can kill GRV and then LVR off that and equity releases. So
that's that is that package holiday is basically what people are like. If I can get that outcome and the team to do that, then great. And we actually have had people that have come to us and gone, just so you know, I might do one of these with you, and then after that I'll go and do it myself. And we're like, sure, like if that's what you want to do, but then on the other side of that, like, the additional risk of running this myself and knowing all the different intricacies, they're kind of just, it's actually easier for me just to keep doing what I do best. And, someone might be a doctor, plastic surgeon, whatever, and they just keep on feeding that cash into the machine and the assets keep popping out the other end. But yeah, again, like our big goal is to create 1,000 homes. So if you came to me and said, I'll do one with you, but after that I'm going to go by myself, I'd be like, sweet. Like, we're both still creating homes in the market that are much needed. We try not to be too protective, like over like, oh, well, if you did it with us, therefore you're locked into using this person and that person. Like, I don't know, it kind of...
it's...
Maybe we're missing like lots of tricks by not kind of being a bit more like that.
People take a clip on the... Surprised you don't do the mortgage broking in-house, throw in a strategy session and clip the conveyancing and do all that stuff.
Some people take a clip on everything, right?
I know. And that's what I'm very vocal about.
And I think as well, I said this to my business partner, I was like, if we ever did do that because it made some kind of commercial sense and we were missing such a trick, that we would literally tell the client up front, like, by the way, here's another line item where we get paid. And if you want to go somewhere else, then that's absolutely fine as well. But so far, we've just like steered clear of that.
Yeah.
I think in today's world as well, like, you just want like transparency. You just want to like, I don't mind paying you for whatever value is you brought, but just let me know what it is.
People don't
sophisticated investors aren't like stupid and
people are starting to become more switched on to that and realize that, price is what you pay, value is what you get, and then there's a cost to everything. One of it's written down, one of it you find out in 2 years when it's a dud project, or when you find out that person's clipped their ticket 4, 5, 6, 7 times just under one thingo and get you for the build price and all that kind of stuff too. So I was going to ask... probably last end up on was like, what are those next steps? But we know what the end goal is around accommodation and that for 2030. But how do you get there? You've got the staff and the numbers that you need now to just be plugging away at a few of these a year, or
it really comes down to funding, I think, as in working with the right investors that see the problem that, like, we all see, but also wants to try and get a solution that works for investor and tenant. Like, we had one client, like, quick story, but they basically wanted to just use a really terrible furniture package, and I was like, it's just not going to work because we want to get the great tenants, and therefore they're not going to want to sit on cardboard boxes for furniture. So yeah, it's just fast forward between here and then is just different funding options, whether that's high net worth, family offices, like funds, institutional, whatever, is just keep feeding that into the machine, keep growing the machine as we go, and keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like just really keep it simple. I actually thought that, I like variety and trying lots of different things. So yeah, for us, it's like that variety comes from Brisbane's now up and running and humming along nicely. Melbourne's next, and then it'll be like, where else can we go? Where there's not like real hard work to get. I mean, a DA in Brisbane we can get in under 20 days. Like, our personal best is 6 days.
That's crazy.
I went to this networking event, and this other developer, in a family of developers, was just like, man, like I can't get something in less than 6 months. Like, and so yeah, like I think we would just look at where can we go where there's not so much resistance that planning doesn't want development to happen. Like, I don't know about you, but if I was to go back and give myself one piece of advice, it was like, go where the wind blows, like sail where the wind blows, as opposed to, no, I really want to develop here because it's where I live or it's where I really like, and like look at the fundamentals, but like, where wants development? Like,
that's true. Trying to find a council that works for you. I hear people that,
it's like I said to you the other day, like, which council? You're like,
yeah, well, I mean, last day I did was like 3-4 months. So I actually didn't think that was bad. And that was over Christmas shutdown too, which obviously a lot of people will shut off or be away in December. So I thought that was actually decent. But man, I think that's cool note to end on, because you've kind of brought that full circle from your training to just one foot in front of the other to just keep going and next and next and next to what you're doing now, which is, I think, a pretty cool whole circle moment. I think it's a pretty good sort of like full circle moment. And then also, as you touched on that one bit of advice is to go where the wind blows. But is there a quote we usually end up with, quote you live your life by, or any other advice that you got for our investors or anyone listening? Anything to end on? Famous last words.
I've got like a whole bunch of quotes that I stuck up in my in like the little kind of garage gym area.
Yeah.
Like one of them, like I really like, is if there isn't a way, then find the way. As in, like another one is, it's not survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the most adaptable. Yeah, like what one piece of advice? I think you've got to just like experiment. Like you've got to give it a go. Like before someone tells you that you can't or whatever. Like there's a book that I read recently, which actually might help with the advice, and it's called "Don't Tell Me I Can't." And it's written by a 15-year-old kid who started his own business at 7, bought a ranch at 8. Like, and it sounds like a made-up story. Unfortunately, he's passed now.
Yeah,
he died at like.
I think I saw that story.
But
yeah.
like the lessons from that is basically don't let anyone else tell you that you can't do something. Like I know it's really like seems obvious when you say it, but you know, I think just to quickly add to this, I was at home before I bought my first property, and my dad was like, you know, tenants will be a nightmare, and you know, it's a terrible idea, and don't do it. He doesn't have any investment properties. He's never done any of this kind of stuff. So it was a real hard kind of pill to swallow, but it was like, okay, I need to kind of ignore that advice and just like go and like model other people and yeah. So I just not taking no for an answer and just have an I can attitude.
Man, Jon Tyson, what a note to end on. And man, I agree, brick by brick. I appreciate you joining me on the Everything Property podcast.
Thank you, sir. So I just not taking no for an answer and just have an I can attitude.
Man, Jon Tyson, what a note to end on. And man, I agree, brick by brick. I appreciate you joining me on the Everything Property podcast.
Thank you, sir.